A first-class cabin is supposed to be a sanctuary, but for Chloe Washington it became a stage for a nightmare. When a simple request turned into a racist tirade, she stood her ground. That's when the pilot, a man with absolute authority, did the unthinkable. He slapped her. The cabin gasped, security was called, and the pilot smirked, thinking he'd won. He didn't know Chloe's phone was already dialing, and the woman answering the call wasn't just her lawyer. It was the CEO of the entire airline. Before we begin, comment where you are watching from today, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. Now let's get into it. The air in the Stratos Airlines first-class lounge at LAX was heavy with the scent of expensive coffee and entitlement. Chloe Washington, 26, felt it settle on her shoulders. She was dressed in a way that screamed off-duty tech, which it was. A charcoal gray designer hoodie, black leggings, and a pair of box-fresh, blindingly white Balenciaga sneakers. Her hair was pulled back in a simple, neat bun. She was in every way the epitome of modern minimalist wealth, and yet the lounge attendant at the gleaming marble desk had looked at her boarding pass 3 times. JFK, first, seat 2A. That's correct, the attendant, a woman with Brenda on her name tag, had said, her voice a half octave too high, as if correct was a shocking development. Is there a problem? Chloe had asked, her voice polite but cool. Oh no, dear, it's just, usually. Brenda had trailed off, gesturing vaguely. Usually people who look like you aren't here. The words hung in the air, unspoken but deafening. Usually you check the pass once. I'm good, thanks, Chloe said, giving a tight-lipped smile before finding a quiet corner. She pulled out her laptop and opened her coding terminal. She was a senior UI/UX designer for a fintech app that was currently eating Wall Street's lunch. This trip wasn't even leisure. It was a last-minute commute. She'd been in LA to oversee a server migration and was heading back to New York for a board meeting. She sent a quick text. On my way. Brenda at the lounge desk needs a new training manual. Maybe one with pictures. A reply buzzed back instantly from Simone with a laughing emoji. Noted. I'll have corporate send her a fruit basket and a mandatory bias seminar. See you for dinner. 8 p.m. Don't be late. Yes, ma'am, Madam CEO, I wouldn't dare. Chloe texted back. Simone Washington, her older sister by 12 years, was not just Madam CEO as a joke. She was the CEO of Stratos Airlines, the company whose lounge Chloe was currently sitting in. Chloe found the irony exhausting. She'd flown Stratos first her entire adult life, first on her sister's buddy passes, and now on her own dime. She knew the wine list better than most of the attendants, yet in airports outside of her New York home base, she was consistently treated like a lost child, a contest winner, or, worst of all, a problem. An hour later, the call for Flight 712 to JFK crackled to life. We now invite our first-class passengers to begin boarding at Gate B45. Chloe packed her laptop and slung her worn leather backpack over one shoulder. She joined the short line, deliberately hanging back to let a fussy elderly couple go ahead of her. When she stepped up to the gate, the agent barely glanced at her. She walked down the jet bridge, the anticipation of a quiet 5-hour flight settling her nerves. She loved this part, the quiet hum of the massive Rolls-Royce engines, the smell of recycled air and possibility. She turned left into the cabin and found her seat, 2A, a roomy pod by the window. A flight attendant was standing in the galley, chatting with another. This one's name tag read, Beth. Beth had a severe blonde bob and a smile that seemed painted on. When Chloe approached, the smile vanished, replaced by a look of masked confusion. Hi, Chloe said, gesturing to the seat. Just 2A. Boarding pass, Beth said, her hand out, palm up. It wasn't a request. Chloe handed it over. Beth studied it, her eyes flicking from the paper to Chloe's face. You're Chloe Washington. I am. Okay. Beth handed it back, her expression flat. Backpack and coat can go overhead. I know, thanks. I'll just keep the backpack at my feet until we take off. It's a full flight, ma'am, Beth said, the ma'am landing like a small stone. "We need the space. All bags overhead." It's a 15-inch backpack. It fits the personal item dimensions and will slide under the ottoman per your own regulations, Chloe said calmly. "I'll put it up after I get my laptop out. Thank you." Beth's lips thinned. She clearly wasn't used to being corrected, especially by someone who looked like Chloe. She huffed a small, sharp breath and turned back to the galley, muttering to her colleague, "Starting already?" Chloe heard it. She chose to ignore it. She sat down, pulled out her noise-canceling headphones, her laptop, and a bottle of water. Just get to New York, she thought. Just 5 hours. Other passengers trickled in. A man in a crisp Brioni suit took 2B across the aisle. Beth greeted him with a dazzling 100-watt smile. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Henderson. Can I get you a glass of champagne before we take off? Orange juice?" "Champagne would be lovely, Beth. Thank you," he said. Beth didn't offer Chloe a thing. Chloe sighed, pulling out her phone to text Simone. "Okay, this flight attendant, Beth, is a real piece of work. Actively hostile." Before she could hit send, a new figure appeared in the cabin. He was tall, silver-haired, and wore the 4-striped epaulets of a captain. He walked through the cabin with a proprietary air, like a king surveying his court. His eyes scanned the passengers, offering crisp nods to the men in suits and ignoring Chloe completely. He stopped at the galley, and Beth's entire demeanor changed. She became fawning, almost giggly. "Captain Rourke, good to see you, sir. Everything looking good up front?" "As it should be, Beth," the pilot Rourke said, his voice a low baritone rumble. "Cabin looks full. Any problems I should know about before we close the door?" Chloe watched as Beth leaned in conspiratorially. Her eyes, cold and sharp, flicked directly to Chloe in 2A. "Just one, Captain," Beth whispered, just loud enough for Chloe to catch the words. "The passenger in 2A. She was difficult during boarding, refused to stow her bag. Now she's refusing to turn off her phone. I'm worried she's going to be a problem." Chloe's blood went cold. It was such a blatant, malicious lie. She was holding her phone, yes, but the cabin door was wide open and people were still boarding. Captain Rourke turned. His eyes, a pale, icy blue, locked onto her. He didn't look like a pilot. He looked like a predator. "I'll handle it," he said. He took 3 long strides and stood over her seat, his shadow falling across her laptop. "Ma'am," he boomed, his voice loud enough to make the man in 2B look up. "My flight attendant tells me you're refusing to comply with pre-flight instructions." Chloe carefully placed her phone screen down on her armrest. "Good afternoon, Captain. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Your colleague asked me to stow my bag, and I said I would after I took my laptop out. The door isn't closed and I'm not on a call." "Don't play word games with me, young lady," Rourke snapped. The cabin's quiet chatter died. "The rules apply to everyone. Phones off, now. And that bag goes up." "Captain," Chloe said, her voice dropping into the same cool, professional tone she used on difficult developers. "I am well aware of the rules. I fly this route weekly. I will put my phone on airplane mode, and the bag will go under the ottoman as it's designed to. It's not a security risk." Rourke's face, already ruddy, began to darken. He was a man who had never been told no, least of all by a young black woman in a hoodie. "I don't know what kind of staff pass or buddy voucher you're flying on, but your attitude is not welcome on my aircraft," he sneered. The cabin went utterly silent. The staff pass comment was a direct racist insinuation that she couldn't possibly afford the seat she was sitting in. Chloe felt a familiar hot surge of anger. She unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up slowly, until she was eye to eye with him. She was 5'9", and he was perhaps 6'1". She didn't flinch. "First," she said, her voice dangerously quiet, "I paid for this ticket with my own money. Second, you will not speak to me in that tone. And third, your flight attendant Beth lied to you. I have been nothing but polite. You, on the other hand, have been accusatory and unprofessional. Now I would like your name and your employee number, both of you." Captain Rourke's eyes bulged, the sheer unmitigated audacity. He looked around, as if to confirm everyone was watching him be defied. Beth was hovering behind him, her eyes wide with a kind of terrified glee. "You want my name?" Rourke sputtered, a vein throbbing in his temple. "I am Captain Marcus Rourke. I am the master of this vessel. And you," he said, jabbing a thick finger toward her, "are off my flight." "I am not going anywhere," Chloe said, holding her ground. "We'll see about that," Rourke snarled. He reached out, not for her bag, but for her. He grabbed her arm, his fingers digging into her bicep, to haul her physically into the aisle. Chloe reacted instinctively. "Don't you touch me!" she yelled, yanking her arm free. And that's when he did it. In a blinding flash of rage, Captain Marcus Rourke drew back his open hand and slapped her hard across the face. The sound was a sickening crack that echoed through the dead-silent cabin. Chloe's head snapped to the side. Her glasses flew off her face and skittered across the floor. A collective, horrified gasp sucked the air out of the cabin. The man in 2B, Mr. Henderson, leaped to his feet. "My God, man! What did you do?" Chloe slowly brought a trembling hand up to her cheek. It was already stinging, a hot, radiating pain. She could feel the imprint of his fingers. She turned back to face him. She wasn't crying. Her eyes were wide, not with fear, but with a cold, terrifying, calculating fury. Captain Rourke, realizing what he'd done in front of 24 witnesses, panicked. He did the only thing a cornered bully knows how to do. He doubled down. "Security!" he bellowed toward the open cabin door. "Security to Gate B-45. I have a hostile, violent passenger assaulting my crew. She struck me. Get her off." Beth, seeing her chance, chimed in. She did. She pushed him. I saw it." Chloe just stared at him. She bent down, picked up her glasses. One lens was cracked and put them back on. Then she picked up her phone from the armrest. "You're right, Captain," she said, her voice chillingly calm. "We do need security. And you're right. I do need to make a call." She unlocked the phone. Her thumb hovered over the first name in her favorites. Simone. Rourke scoffed. "Calling your lawyer? Go ahead. They can meet you at the terminal jail. You are finished." Chloe hit the call button and put the phone to her ear. It rang once. "Simone," Chloe said, her voice shaking just slightly. Not from fear, but from the adrenaline. "Hi, sorry to bother you. I know you're in a budget review." The pilot and Beth exchanged a confused, mocking look. "No, I'm not okay, actually," Chloe continued. "I'm on flight 712, LAX to JFK. We're still at the gate. B-45. She paused, listening. Her eyes never left Captain Rourke's. "I need you to do something for me," Chloe said. "I need you to call LAX ground control, the head of airport security, and the station manager, Richard Lloyd. I need you to tell them to ground this flight. Do not let this plane move. And I need you to send the Port Authority police to the aircraft." Rourke's smirk faltered. This was specific. This was not the call of a hysterical passenger. "Why?" Chloe said into the phone, her voice breaking with the first wave of emotion. "Because the pilot, Captain Marcus Rourke, he just slapped me across the face." She watched the blood drain from Marcus Rourke's face. He went from purple rage to a pasty, sick white in a single heartbeat. Beth's jaw dropped, her painted-on smile cracking. "Simone," Chloe finished, "please hurry. He's trying to have me arrested." She hung up. What did you just do?" Beth stammered. "Who is Simone?" Rourke demanded, though the bluster was gone, replaced by a tiny, creeping worm of fear. "Who was that?" "That," Chloe said, tasting the blood from where her teeth had cut the inside of her cheek, "was Simone Washington, our sister, and the chief executive officer of Stratos Airlines. Now, Captain, I believe you're on her aircraft." For a full 10 seconds, the only sound was the low auxiliary whine of the aircraft's power unit. Captain Rourke and Beth were frozen, statues of dawning horror. Rourke's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The man in 2B, Mr. Henderson, broke the silence. "Well," he said, sitting back down with a grimly satisfied look, "this is going to be a show." The first sign of the digital hurricane Chloe had unleashed came from the pocket of the gate agent, who had just stepped onto the jet bridge to close the flight. His radio squawked so loudly it was audible inside the plane. G712, G712, do not close that door. I repeat, all call, do not close the door on 712. Hold the ramp, hold the ramp. The gate agent looked confused at Rourke. Captain, we have a hold? Rourke, jolted from his stupor, tried to regain control. This is a misunderstanding. This passenger, she... Thud, clang, beep, beep, beep. The unmistakable deafening sound of the jet bridge which had begun to pull back, reversing and slamming back into the fuselage. It relatched with a hydraulic hiss of finality. What is the meaning of this? Rourke blustered, stepping toward the door. He was met by a wall of new arrivals. It wasn't just the 2 airport security guards he had summoned. Behind them were 4 uniformed officers of the Port Authority Police, their hands resting on their belts. And pushing past all of them, his tie askew and his face slick with sweat, was Richard Lloyd, the LAX station manager for Stratos Airlines. Richard was a man Chloe knew. He'd been at her sister's house for barbecues. He looked like he'd just run a marathon. Chloe, Miss Washington, he gasped, rushing onto the plane. He saw her face, the bright red handprint already darkening to a bruise on her left cheek. Oh my God. Oh my God. Simone, she said, but I didn't. It's true, Richard, Chloe said, her voice flat. He hit me. Richard Lloyd turned to Captain Rourke, and the look on his face was not one of confusion. It was one of pure, unadulterated terror. Captain Rourke, Richard said, his voice trembling with rage. You are to come with me. Now. These officers are here for you. For me, Rourke roared, pointing a shaking finger at Chloe. She's the one who was hostile. She refused to follow crew instructions. She's a security threat. I am the captain of this aircraft, and I am ordering her removal. No, Captain, you are not, Richard snapped, finding his spine. You are grounded, effective immediately. You are relieved of command. You will hand over your cockpit credentials and your airline ID to me, right now. The Port Authority officers stepped forward. Captain Rourke, the lead officer said, his voice calm and authoritative. We are here to escort you off this aircraft. We have a report of a physical assault. Please come with us. This is an outrage, Rourke yelled. This is my flight deck, the Union. The Union can't help you, Marcus, Richard Lloyd said, his voice dropping. Simone Washington is on a direct line with the head of the FAA. You assaulted her sister. You are done. Give me your ID. Rourke looked at the stone-faced officers. He looked at the cabin full of passengers, all of them filming on their phones. He looked at Chloe, who was standing by her seat, watching him, her expression unreadable. With a shaking hand, Captain Rourke reached into his jacket, pulled out his ID lanyard and handed it to Richard. And her, Chloe said, her voice cutting through the tension. She pointed a single, steady finger at Beth. Flight attendant Beth. She started it. She lied to him, told him I was being disruptive when I was just sitting here. She's complicit. Beth, who had been trying to blend into the galley bulkhead, let out a small squeak. Richard nodded grimly. Beth, you're grounded. Off the plane. Both of you. Your entire crew is being stood down pending a new one. A new crew, one of the other flight attendants whispered. What about the flight? This flight, Richard announced to the cabin, is canceled. A groan went up from the passengers. Quiet, Richard yelled, his patience snapping. All passengers will be deplaned and rebooked. Stratos Airlines will provide full compensation, hotel vouchers, and a 10,000-mile bonus for this unacceptable incident. We apologize. Please gather your belongings and deplane in an orderly fashion. He turned back to the officers. Take them. The officers stepped up to Rourke. Sir, please come with us. I am a 30-year veteran, Rourke yelled as they put a hand on his arm. You can't do this. This is illegal. The only illegal act here, Captain, Mr. Henderson said loudly from 2B. was your assault on that young woman. And I have the entire thing on video, starting with your racist staff pass comment. That was the final nail. Rourke deflated. He allowed the officers to lead him off the jet bridge, a fallen king being paraded through his own court, the flash of a dozen cell phone cameras documenting his walk of shame. Beth followed, openly weeping. I didn't do anything. I was just doing my job. No, Chloe said quietly as she passed. You weren't. Richard Lloyd turned to Chloe, his expression softening to one of deep concern. Chloe, are you all right? Do you need a medic? Let's get you to the lounge. I'm fine, Richard, Chloe said, rubbing her cheek. But I am not going to the lounge. I'm going to the Stratos offices here. And you and I are going to sit down with your head of security, and we are going to file a police report. A criminal police report. Of course. Absolutely, Richard said, nodding vigorously. Whatever you need. We have a car waiting. As Chloe gathered her backpack, Mr. Henderson from 2B stepped into the aisle. Ma'am, my name is Mark Henderson. I'm a managing partner at the law firm Sullivan and Cromwell. I saw everything. I am horrified. Here is my card. I will be your witness. I will write a statement. I will testify in court. Whatever you need. That was the most disgusting abuse of power I have ever seen. Thank you, Mr. Henderson, Chloe said, taking the card. I will be in touch. Or rather, my sister's legal team will. She walked off the plane, past the stunned gate agents, and into the terminal, where a Stratos employee was already waiting with a wheelchair. I don't need that, Chloe said. It's protocol, Miss Washington, the young man stammered. Forget protocol, son, Richard said, coming up behind them. Just get us to the car and get Miss Washington an ice pack. The Stratos Airlines corporate office at LAX is a sterile gray fortress within the terminal, designed to handle logistics, not crises. Within 10 minutes, it had become the war room for the single biggest PR disaster in the airline's history. Chloe sat in the main conference room, a plastic-wrapped ice pack pressed to her rapidly swelling cheek. Richard Lloyd was pacing, his phone pressed to his ear. Yes, Miss Washington, I have her. Yes, the police are on their way. Yes, Rourke and the attendant are with airport security. Yes, the entire flight is being rebooked as we speak. A large monitor at the end of the table flickered to life, and Simone Washington's face appeared. She was in her New York office, 3,000 miles away, but her presence filled the room. Her hair was immaculate, her suit a sharp navy blue, but her eyes were chips of ice. Chloe, she said, her voice dangerously calm. Talk to me. Tell me exactly what happened, from the moment you boarded. Chloe recounted the entire story. The lounge attendant, Beth's boarding pass check, the refusal of a pre-departure drink, the staff pass comment, the lies Beth told Rourke, Rourke's immediate unhinged aggression, the demand for his name, and the slap. As she spoke, Richard Lloyd was joined by the LAX head of security and 2 Port Authority officers. They listened, their expressions growing grimmer by the second. When she finished, the room was silent. Richard, Simone said, her voice like a razor. Pull the CVR, pull the cockpit door surveillance cam, pull the gate cam. I want every frame of footage. I want Rourke and Beth's employee files on my desk in the next 5 minutes. I want a full list of every complaint ever filed against either of them. Yes, Madam CEO, Richard said, typing furiously. Officer, Simone said, addressing the senior policeman. My sister Chloe Washington is a private citizen who was just criminally assaulted by a Stratos employee on our property. She will be pressing charges to the fullest extent of the law. I expect Captain Rourke to be arrested and charged with, at minimum, assault and battery. Am I clear? Yes, ma'am, the officer said, impressed. We are taking statements from the other passengers as we speak. Mr. Henderson in particular has already emailed his video to our detective. The visual evidence is damning. I can confirm Captain Rourke is being formally arrested as we speak. A grim satisfaction settled on Chloe. It was real. It was happening. Now for the internal, Simone continued. Richard, I want Rourke and Beth's employment suspended, effective immediately, pending termination. And I use pending only as a courtesy to HR. They are to be issued formal trespass warnings. They are never to set foot on Stratos property or a Stratos aircraft again, not as employees, not as passengers. But the union, Richard stammered. Rourke he's high level in the pilots' union. I don't care if he's the president of the United States, Simone snarled. He struck a passenger. He struck my sister. The union can take it to arbitration, and we will countersue every member of their board for protecting a violent criminal. Do it. Now. Doing it, Richard said, his face pale. Chloe, Simone said, her gaze softening for the first time. How is your face? Do you need a doctor? It hurts, Chloe admitted. My glasses are cracked, but I'm more angry than hurt. That he thought he could do that. That he felt so safe doing it. He felt safe because he was, Simone said, her voice dark. He was a 30-year veteran, a king, as they call them. Part of an old guard culture I have been trying to root out for 3 years. He felt safe because people like Beth enabled him, and people like his managers protected him. That safety, that protection, it ends tonight. The door to the conference room opened, and a young HR manager, looking terrified, handed Richard a stack of files. Here they are, sir. The employee jackets. Read them, Simone ordered. Richard opened Rourke's file. He flipped a few pages. His face went white. What is it? Chloe asked. My God, Richard whispered. 8 formal complaints in the last 10 years. Aggressive tone with female subordinate. Inappropriate language toward a passenger of color. Refusal to fly with a specific female co-pilot. Hostile. And? Simone pressed. All of them, Richard said, were dismissed. Every single one signed off by the same man. Alan Jacobs, the West Coast Chief of Flight Operations. Simone's eyes narrowed. Get Alan Jacobs on the phone, now. Richard dialed. Mr. Jacobs, I have CEO Washington on the line for you, sir. I really think you... He winced. Yes, he's on. The phone was put on speaker. This is Jacobs. Alan, this is Simone Washington. Madam CEO, what a surprise. What can I do for you? I heard there was some trouble at the gate. The trouble, Alan, is that your captain, Marcus Rourke, just assaulted my sister in first class, and I'm looking at his file. A file that shows 8 separate complaints, all of which you personally dismissed. There was a long, cold silence on the line. Now, Simone, Jacob said, his tone shifting from subservient to oily. You know how it is. We have to protect our pilots. The union is strong. Sometimes complaints are just misunderstandings. Rourke is old school, but he's a damn good pilot. He's a racist, misogynist liability, Alan, and you are his enabler. Simone said flatly. As of this moment, you are suspended from all duties, pending a full investigation into your management practices. You will surrender your credentials, and you will be escorted from the building. We are auditing every complaint you have ever touched. If we find a pattern, we will be pursuing this with our legal team. Goodbye. She motioned for Richard to hang up. The room was silent. Chloe watched, stunned at the speed and precision. This wasn't just karma. This was a corporate assassination. Richard, Simone said. I'm on the next flight out of Newark. I'm taking the company jet. I will be in Los Angeles in 5 hours. Have a car for me. Chloe, you are not flying to New York tonight. You're coming with me to a hotel. We'll get you checked out. I'm fine, Cy. Really, I can't believe this. Believe it, Simone said. The old school is officially closed. This doesn't end with Rourke. This ends when I've burned the rot out of my company, and I'm starting with Flight 712. The news of Flight 712's cancellation and the arrest of a 30-year veteran captain spread through Stratos Airlines and then the wider aviation community like a shockwave. By the time Chloe and Richard were finishing with the police, Mark Henderson's video was already on Twitter, now X. It was grainy, shot from across the aisle, but it was undeniable. It captured Rourke's staff pass comment, Chloe's calm reply, and the sickening, violent slap. It had 100,000 views in the first hour. The media feeding frenzy began. Stratos Airlines pilot arrested for assaulting passenger in first class. Video shows shocking attack on Flight 712. Who is Chloe Washington? Rumors swirl of CEO connection. In the sterile corporate office, Beth, the flight attendant, was in a separate room, undergoing her own interview with HR. Stripped of Rourke's authority, she had collapsed. I was just following his lead, she wept. He's the captain. He's scary. I was afraid of him. He told me he was going to teach that girl a lesson. The HR manager, a sharp woman named Maria, stopped writing. Wait, you're saying Captain Rourke threatened Miss Washington before the confrontation? Yes, no. I mean, he was angry. I was scared for my own safety. Beth cried, realizing her mistake too late. So, Maria said, her pen tapping, you are stating on the record that you were aware the captain was angry, that he had threatened a passenger, and you did not, at any point, attempt to de-escalate, alert other crew, or follow security protocol. You instead stood by and watched him assault her, and then you lied to the police claiming she was the assailant. Beth's face crumpled. My career. I have a mortgage. Your career is over, Beth, Maria said, closing the folder. Your termination will be for cause, gross misconduct, endangerment of a passenger, and lying in a federal investigation. Security will escort you out. Meanwhile, the ripples were turning into a tsunami. The pilots' union, the powerful ALPA, had immediately released a statement. We are aware of the incident on Flight 712. We stand by our pilot, Captain Rourke, and insist on due process, reminding the public that all individuals are innocent until proven guilty. Simone, upon reading this, called her legal team. Get ready, she said. They want to play hardball? We'll play. I want a civil suit filed against Marcus Rourke for assault, and another against the union itself for knowingly and repeatedly protecting a violent employee. Use Alan Jacobs' entire file as Exhibit A. The company stock took an 8% hit in after-hours trading. The board was panicking. Simone called an emergency virtual meeting from the Stratos hangar at Newark, moments before boarding the jet to LA. This is not a financial crisis, she told the board of directors, her voice echoing in the cavernous hangar. It is a moral one, and we will fix it. We will not be issuing a weak apology. We will be issuing a statement of action. We will be transparent. We will tell the world what happened, and we will tell them what we are doing about it. Rourke is fired. Beth is fired. Jacobs is suspended and under investigation. This is the new Stratos. You are either with me, or you are welcome to tender your resignation. She clicked off without waiting for a reply. Back in LA, the passengers of Flight 712 were being processed. They were angry about the delay, but the story had spread through the waiting area. When they were told why it was canceled, that the pilot had assaulted a woman, the anger shifted. Good, one passenger said at the rebooking desk. I saw that girl, she was just sitting there. He was a monster. Stratos, on Simone's orders, spared no expense. They were rebooked on the next available flights, given thousands of dollars in travel vouchers, and put up in 4-star hotels. Mark Henderson, the witness, was personally upgraded to Stratos' highest executive platinum status for life. Chloe, exhausted, was finally escorted to a black SUV on the tarmac, far from the public eye. Richard Lloyd held the door for her. Chloe, I am so sorry, he said. I've known Marcus for years. I never thought. That's the problem, Richard, Chloe said, the ice pack now a warm bag of water. Nobody ever thinks, until it happens. You should have seen his file. You all should have. Richard had no answer. He just nodded and closed the door. Simone Washington arrived at the hotel in Beverly Hills just before 1 a.m. Pacific time. She found Chloe in the penthouse suite eating fries from room service and watching the news. Her own face was plastered on the screen. Black tech designer assaulted by pilot. Sister of CEO attacked on Stratos flight. Simone didn't say a word. She just walked over, pulled her sister to her feet and held her. Chloe, who had been running on pure, cold adrenaline for hours, finally broke. She buried her face in her sister's shoulder and sobbed. "He just hit me," she cried, "like I was nothing." "You are not nothing," Simone whispered, her voice thick with a controlled rage. "You are my sister, and he is about to become a cautionary tale." For the next 48 hours, Simone Washington worked from that hotel suite. It was, as the media later dubbed it, the purge of Flight 712. She didn't just fire Rourke, Beth, and Jacobs. She ordered a full, independent third-party audit of the entire Western Division, headed by the law firm Mark Henderson worked for, Sullivan and Cromwell. The audit uncovered a toxic good old boys network, protected by Alan Jacobs, that had been burying complaints for over a decade. It wasn't just Rourke, it was a dozen other senior pilots and managers. One by one, Simone had them called. A chief pilot in San Francisco found to have dismissed 3 separate sexual harassment claims against one of his friends. "Your employment is terminated." A scheduling manager who deliberately gave the worst routes to female pilots who complained, "You are on immediate unpaid leave. Do not come to the office." The rot was deep and Simone had brought the fire. Marcus Rourke's fate was sealed. He was charged by the LA District Attorney with assault and battery. But the real blow came from the federal government. Because his assault happened on an aircraft, he was also charged with interference with a flight crew, a federal felony that carried a 20-year prison sentence. His pilot's license was revoked by the FAA before he even made bail. His 30-year career, his multi-million-dollar pension, his entire identity, all evaporated in the time it took to throw a single arrogant slap. Beth, the flight attendant, faced no criminal charges but was fired so publicly and for cause that she was rendered unhireable by any other major airline. She lost her flight benefits, her seniority, and her reputation. But the most satisfying karma for Chloe was what happened to Alan Jacobs. The audit revealed he wasn't just dismissing complaints, he was actively losing evidence and intimidating junior staff into silence. Stratos's legal team, led by Covington and Burling, a high-powered DC firm, filed a civil suit against him for breach of fiduciary duty. He was financially ruined, a pariah in the industry he once ruled. On the third day, Simone and Chloe sat on the hotel balcony, watching the sun rise over Los Angeles. "The stock is already rebounding," Simone said, scrolling through her tablet. "We released the full statement. Zero tolerance, full transparency, a new culture. We owned it. We didn't hide. We announced the audit and the firings. We're being praised for the decisive action." "And Rourke?" Chloe asked, her bruise now a sickly yellow-green. "He's pleading not guilty, of course," Simone said with a humorless laugh. "His lawyer is claiming you were verbally abusive, and that Rourke felt threatened, that he was protecting his crew." "He's lying," Chloe said. "Of course he is, but it doesn't matter. Mark Henderson's video, plus the testimony from 6 other first-class passengers, plus the cockpit door cam, which caught the audio of Beth's initial lie plus his own file. He's done. He'll take a plea deal. He will see jail time." A quiet fell between them. "You didn't have to do all this, Si," Chloe said softly. "The purge, grounding the flight. You could have just had him fired." Simone looked up from her screen, her eyes meeting her sister's. "They didn't just disrespect a passenger, Chloe. They disrespected the family. They disrespected me. They did it because they looked at you and saw a target. They thought you were powerless. They thought I, as a black woman CEO, was probably just a figurehead. That the real power lay with men like Jacobs and Rourke." She stood up and walked to the edge of the balcony. "I didn't ground a flight, Chloe. I grounded his flight. I didn't just fire a pilot, I broke a system. I sent a message to every single pilot, attendant, and manager in my company. The planes don't belong to them. They are not their personal kingdoms. They belong to the people we serve, all of them. And I," she said, a small, hard smile on her face, "am the queen, and I protect my family." A week later, Chloe was back at LAX. She was understandably nervous about flying, but she had to get back to New York. Simone was with her. They weren't in the lounge, they were walking straight to the gate, B45. It was the same flight, Stratos 712 to JFK. As they approached, a new gate agent, a young man with a warm smile, looked up. "Miss Washington, Madam CEO, welcome. We are ready for you." They walked down the same jet bridge. When they stepped onto the plane, Chloe paused. The flight attendant greeting them was a tall, elegant black woman. Her name tag read Darlene. She smiled, a genuine warm smile. "Welcome aboard, Miss Washington," she said to Chloe. "It is an honor to have you with us today. Can I get you a glass of champagne?" Chloe smiled back. "I would love one, Darlene. Thank you." She walked to her seat. 2A. A moment later, the pre-flight announcement came on. The voice was crisp, professional, and female. "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome aboard Stratos Flight 712 with service to New York's JFK. This is your captain speaking, Captain Harris. My first officer, Janine Rhodes, and I, along with our amazing lead flight attendant, Darlene, are so pleased to have you with us today. We know you have a choice when you fly, and we thank you for choosing us." Chloe looked over at Simone, who was in 2B, the seat Mark Henderson had occupied. Simone just winked. "Captain Harris is our best," she whispered. "And she, Janine, and Darlene are the first all-black female flight deck and lead crew to run this route. I thought it was appropriate." As the plane pushed back from the gate, Chloe looked out the window. It felt different. The air felt lighter. The fear was gone, replaced by a sense of justice. When Darlene came by with the champagne, she leaned in. "By the way, Miss Washington," she whispered, "I was one of the women who filed a complaint against Jacobs 5 years ago. He told me I should be grateful for my job. I just wanted to say, from all of us, thank you." Chloe raised her glass. "No, Darlene, thank you. Welcome aboard." The flight was smooth. The landing was perfect. As they deplaned at JFK, Chloe saw Captain Harris at the cockpit door, wishing passengers goodbye. She was a sharp, confident woman in her 40s. "Captain," Chloe said, stopping. "Miss Washington, a pleasure," the captain replied, shaking her hand. "That was one of the best flights I've ever had," Chloe said. "We aim to please." Captain Harris smiled. "We heard what happened. I just want you to know, you have more allies out here than you know. You made the skies safer for a lot of people last week. Fly with us anytime." Chloe nodded, a lump in her throat. She walked off the plane and into the terminal, where her sister was waiting. "See?" Simone said, putting an arm around her. "This is Stratos Airlines. This is our company." Marcus Rourke eventually pled guilty to misdemeanor assault and federal interference. He served 6 months in a low-security federal prison. He lost his pension, his home, and his family. He was last seen working at a hardware store in suburban Florida. Beth never worked in aviation again. Alan Jacobs was forced into an early and financially humiliating retirement. Stratos Airlines, under Simone Washington, became the industry leader in diversity, inclusion, and customer-focused service. Their stock price tripled over the next 2 years. And Chloe Washington? She went back to designing her app. But she never, ever hesitated to ask for a captain's name again. She knew her power. And more importantly, she knew her sister always had her back. The flight with Captain Harris and her all-female crew was more than just a trip. It was a statement. As Chloe and Simone walked through the arrivals hall at JFK, the exhaustion of the past week finally settled on them, eclipsed only by a profound sense of rightness. The air was different. The world was different. The battle was over, but the final accounting, the hard karma, was just beginning. The subsequent 3 months were a maelstrom of legal proceedings and corporate restructuring. Marcus Rourke, stripped of his uniform and his dignity, was a pathetic figure in an ill-fitting suit. His high-priced union lawyer had tried every trick. They'd filed motions to have the video evidence thrown out, claiming it was an illegal recording. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Judge Ann Kelleher, dismissed it in less than 5 minutes. Mr. Henderson was in a public space counsel. He was documenting a crime, The video is in. They tried to paint Chloe as the aggressor. Miss Washington, the lawyer, Mr. Brody, had sneered during a pretrial deposition. Isn't it true you have a combative relationship with authority? That you are part of a tech elite that looks down on service workers? Chloe, flanked by Simone's corporate legal team, had simply pushed her new glasses up her nose. Mr. Brody, I am a designer who was on her way to a board meeting. Your client, Captain Rourke, called me a racial slur under his breath, insinuated I couldn't afford my ticket, and then when I calmly asked for his employee number, he assaulted me. He slapped me. The only one with a combative relationship in that cabin was the man who felt so entitled he could physically strike a woman in front of 24 witnesses. The union, seeing its position collapsing, pressured Rourke to take a deal, but the federal charges, interference with a flight crew, were non-negotiable. The U.S. Attorney's Office was making an example of him. On the day of his sentencing, the courtroom was packed. Mark Henderson was there. Darlene, the flight attendant, was in the back row. Chloe and Simone sat in the front. Rourke, his face pasty and slick with sweat, read a prepared statement. I deeply regret my actions. It was a moment of high stress. I was concerned for the safety of my flight. Judge Kelleher cut him off. Save it, Mr. Rourke. I have read the files. I have seen the video. I have also read the 8 prior complaints against you that your manager, Mr. Jacobs, conveniently lost. This was not a moment of high stress. This was a moment of supreme arrogance. You were not a captain. You were a tyrant in a miniature kingdom of your own making. You did not see a passenger. You saw a target. You saw a young black woman and you assumed she was powerless. You assumed wrong. She banged her gavel. On the state charge of assault and battery, I sentence you to 30 days time served and 2 years of probation. However, on the federal charge of interference with a flight crew, this court finds your actions so egregious, so far beyond the pale of your authority, that a message must be sent. I sentence you to 18 months in a federal correctional institution. A sharp, broken sound came from Rourke. It was a sob. Furthermore, the judge continued, you are ordered to pay a $25,000 fine, and you will pay full restitution to Miss Washington for her medical bills, her property, namely her glasses, and for therapy. And it goes without saying, the FAA has permanently revoked your pilot's license. You will never be in command of an aircraft again. You are remanded into custody. As a U.S. Marshal cuffed him, Rourke's eyes, wild with panic, found Simone's. He had an expression of pure, unadulterated hatred. Simone just stared back, her expression perfectly, terrifyingly blank. She gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. It was done. Rourke's life unraveled. His wife of 35 years, who had apparently endured his old-school temperament at home for decades, filed for divorce while he was in prison. The union, having lost so publicly, cut him loose. When he was released 14 months later for good behavior, he had nothing. His multi-million-dollar 401k and pension were seized as part of the civil settlement Stratos had filed against him. He was a broken 62-year-old man with a felony conviction. A year later, a junior Stratos pilot walking through a hardware store in a Jacksonville, Florida suburb saw him. Rourke was wearing a red vest, struggling to lift a bag of concrete mix. The pilot stopped, looked at him, and just said, "Shame." Marcus Rourke didn't even look up. He just kept hauling the concrete, the dust covering the shame on his face. Beth, the flight attendant, met a quieter but no less definitive fate. Fired for cause, she was blacklisted. The aviation community is small. The video of her lying to the police, he pushed him, I saw it, was attached to her HR file, which circulated unofficially. She applied at United, Delta, and American. She never even got a call back. The for cause termination for passenger endangerment meant she couldn't even get a job as a gate agent. She lost her condo. The last anyone heard, she was working at a call center for an insurance company. Her voice, once sharp and condescending, now reduced to a monotone script. "How can I help you resolve your claim today?" And Alan Jacobs? Simone's purge was surgical. The civil suit for breach of fiduciary duty was a masterstroke. The audit from Sullivan and Cromwell uncovered a slush fund he had been using to pay off nuisance complaints, hush money to make harassment claims disappear. It was a clear violation of corporate policy and federal law. Faced with his own set of charges, Jacob settled. He signed over his entire $4 million stock package back to the company, his unvested pension and his severance. He was financially and professionally obliterated. He was last seen trying to get a consultancy gig with a small second-rate cargo airline in Asia. No one would hire him, but the downfall of 3 people was not the real victory. The real victory was the rise of the new Stratos. Simone Washington became a titan. The Flight 712 incident became a Harvard Business School case study on crisis management and corporate culture reform. The stock, after its initial 8% dip, soared. Within 2 years, it had more than tripled. Investors loved certainty, and Simone Washington was the most decisive CEO in the industry. She instituted a mandatory top-to-bottom de-escalation and implicit bias training, designed by a team of psychologists and former law enforcement. And she personally led the first session for all senior pilots. The first slide in the presentation was Mark Henderson's video. "This," she said to the room full of decorated captains, "is what failure looks like. This is what arrogance looks like. This is what we are not. This is what we will never be again. Your authority in the cabin is absolute, but it is not a license for tyranny. It is a responsibility. You are not kings, you are guardians. Act like it." Captain Harris was promoted to Chief of Flight Operations for the West Coast, taking Alan Jacobs' old job. Darlene, the lead attendant, was promoted to head of in-flight training. They were the new faces of Stratos, and they were brilliant at their jobs. 6 months after the sentencing, Chloe was the keynote speaker at the Grace Hopper Celebration of Women in Computing. Her topic wasn't just UI/UX design. "I spent my career designing systems," she said, standing on the stage in front of 20,000 women. "I design user interfaces to be intuitive, fair, and accessible. But last year, I ran into a system that was badly designed. It was a human system built on old biases, protected by enablers, and designed to fail people who looked like me. I was told I was disruptive. I was told I was hostile. I was punished for calmly asking for accountability." She paused, and the auditorium was silent. "So I did what any good designer would do. I found the flaw. I reported the bug, and I called the head of the whole damn company, who just happens to be my sister." The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. "The system is being redesigned," Chloe continued, her voice ringing with a new, hard-won confidence. "But the lesson isn't just about aviation. It's about all of us. Do not let a broken system tell you that you are the problem. Do not let an arrogant voice tell you to be quiet. Find the flaw. Report the bug. And if you have to, call the CEO. You are not powerless. You are the catalyst." That evening, she was back in New York at Simone's penthouse overlooking Central Park. The 2 sisters were sitting on the balcony, a bottle of expensive champagne between them. It was the same vintage they served in first class. "That was a hell of a speech," Simone said, clinking her glass against Chloe's. "I had a hell of a teacher," Chloe replied, taking a sip. Her cheek hadn't a trace of a bruise, but she sometimes felt a phantom sting, a reminder. "You know," Simone said, looking out over the city lights, "I got a letter from Rourke, from prison. He wrote it by hand." "What did it say?" Chloe asked, tensing. "It said, 'You ruined me, you and your sister. I was a good pilot. I hope you're happy.'" "Are you?" Chloe asked. Simone took a long, slow sip of her champagne. She thought of the new training programs, of Captain Harris's promotion, of Darlene's grateful smile. She thought of the fear she used to have for her sister, flying alone, and the new confidence she had in the company she had rebuilt from the inside out. "No, I'm not happy he's in prison," Simone said finally. "I'm not happy any of it happened, but I am satisfied. There's a difference. He didn't think he was a good pilot. He thought he was a god. He forgot that the ground, the hard karma, is always waiting, And it always catches up. To justice, Chloe. To justice, Chloe said, raising her glass. They drank, the city lights twinkling below them like a million tiny grounded stars, each one a silent witness to the new, clear sky above. That single arrogant slap cost Captain Rourke his career, his pension, and his freedom. It cost flight attendant Beth her job and her reputation, and it toppled a corrupt manager who thought he was untouchable. But it sparked a revolution at Stratos Airlines. Simone Washington's purge exposed a network of prejudice, proving that karma isn't just about one person's downfall, it's about systemic justice. Chloe's bravery, and her one crucial phone call, forced an entire corporation to look in the mirror and finally, permanently, change. What do you think of Simone's response? Was it the ultimate I am the boss moment? Tell us in the comments what you would have done if you were Chloe. If you love stories where karma hits back hard, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with a friend, and of course, subscribe to the channel. You won't want to miss the shocking story we have for you next.